Welcome back to Steve and Abby English. I am Steve.
And I'm Abby. Thank you so much for hanging out with us again.
We love our returning listeners. You guys make this so much fun. Today we are tackling something huge.
Oh, yes, we are. We are talking about the word have.
Exactly. Now I know what you might be thinking. Have? Really? That is day one stuff.
It is totally day one stuff. But here is the secret. Mastering simple, high-frequency verbs is the real key to sounding like a natural, relaxed native speaker. It is way more important than learning complicated grammar rules.
100%. So many learners try to memorize these massive, complex academic words. They want to sound smart.
Which is completely normal. I do the exact same thing when I am trying to speak a new language. You want to impress people, but you end up sounding a bit like a textbook.
Exactly. And frankly, native speakers just do not talk like that in everyday life. We rely on basic words like have for almost everything.
We use it for daily routines, for informal chats, and for our obligations. Everyone learns the word have on day one, but almost nobody uses it to its full potential.
That is such a good point. We stretch this little word to cover so many different situations. It is actually amazing when you really stop and look at it.
And I know native speakers can talk fast. Sometimes all those tiny everyday words just blend together. If you are having trouble catching every single phrase today, please do not be hard on yourself. That is exactly why we created a tool to help you out.
Yes, we did. If you want to follow along and really lock in this everyday vocabulary, you can grab the free full-text transcript. The link is right down there in the show description.
It is super helpful. You can read along while we talk, which is amazing for building muscle memory. Just seeing the words on the page makes a world of difference.
Absolutely. It takes the pressure off, so you can just relax and focus on the natural flow of the conversation.
Exactly. Plus, it helps you catch those tiny little prepositions we use.
Okay, I think we are ready to dive in. I know you had a wild weekend, right?
Oh my goodness, yes! I have the perfect story for this. It involves some very loud neighbors.
All right, let us jump right into today's first real talk.
So, picture this. It was late last Saturday night. I was just lying in bed, trying to wind down after a really long week. I had my favorite cozy blankets pulled up, I was reading a nice book, and I was feeling so incredibly relaxed. My eyes were getting heavy, and I was finally drifting off to sleep.
That sounds like a perfectly peaceful Saturday night.
Right? I am a total homebody lately, so I really value my quiet time. Anyway, suddenly, I hear this incredibly heavy bass through the bedroom wall. Boom, boom, boom. The walls are literally shaking. The new guy next door decided it was a great time to throw a massive, wild dance party.
Oh no, classic apartment living nightmare.
Exactly. At first, I tried my best to ignore it. I pulled my thickest pillow right over my head. I even dug through my nightstand and put in my foam earplugs. But the bass was just way too much. I was having a hard time just thinking straight, let alone trying to fall asleep.
I hate that exact feeling. I have such a hard time sleeping when there is background noise. It seriously drives me completely crazy.
It is the absolute worst. So I lay there in the dark for about an entire hour. I kept hoping the music would just stop on its own. I really did not want to deal with it at all. You know how much I usually hate dealing with confrontation.
You really do try to avoid conflict.
I totally do. But finally, at 1 in the morning, I just could not take it anymore. I threw my giant, oversized winter coat right over my pajamas. I must have looked totally ridiculous. I walked out into the freezing cold hallway and marched right over to his front door.
Wait, you went over there in your pajamas and a giant winter coat? That is actually hilarious. I would have been way too self-conscious to do that.
Well, I was completely desperate for sleep at that point. I knocked loudly on his door, and it took him forever to actually answer. When he finally opened it, I could see way too many people crammed into his tiny living room. There were solo cups everywhere.
What a complete disaster.
It really was. So I put on my best friendly neighbor face. I started off very nicely. I just wanted to have a chat about the building's quiet hours, you know? Just a very casual, friendly reminder between neighbors.
Good strategy. Start off friendly and keep it polite.
Right. I smiled politely and said, "Hey, I live right next door." But he could barely even hear me over the loudspeakers. He just laughed out loud and told me to come inside and join the party.
Are you actually kidding me?
I really wish I was. At that exact moment, my friendly, patient attitude completely vanished. I realized a casual approach was just not going to work with this guy. I had to step up and actually have a word with him about respect.
Good for you. Sometimes you just have to step up and set a firm boundary.
Exactly. I looked him right in the eye, and I completely dropped the nice neighbor act. I told him very clearly that if he did not turn the bass down right then, I was going to call the building manager and make a formal complaint.
Wow, serious damage control. Did it actually work?
It did. He looked a little bit shocked, but he actually apologized and turned the volume way down. I went back to bed and finally got some peace and quiet, but my adrenaline was pumping so fast.
Hold on, before we go further, you just used some great words there. Let us get into our Real Talk breakdown. Welcome to our first Real Talk breakdown. Today we are looking at how Abby used the simple word have in 3 very different ways. The first phrase you used was having a hard time.
Yes, I said I was having a hard time thinking straight. We use this phrase instead of saying something formal like, I was experiencing difficulty. Saying you are having a hard time feels so much more relatable and human.
Exactly. It shows a little bit of vulnerability. It is okay if you struggle to use these phrases at first. It might feel challenging right now, but that is completely normal. Building that conversational muscle memory takes a little bit of time. Please do not ever feel bad if you forget them in the moment. You will get the hang of it, I promise.
Thank you, Steve. That is so encouraging and true. Here is a quick example of how to use it. I am having a hard time waking up early this week.
And another example could be, my younger brother is having a hard time finding a new job right now.
Perfect. Okay, the next phrase I used was have a chat. I said I just wanted to have a chat with my loud neighbor.
This is such a great, common, everyday expression. We use have a chat when we want to talk to someone in a very friendly, casual, and relaxed way. It is pressure-free.
Exactly. It does not sound angry or serious at all. For example, I love to have a chat with my mom on Sunday mornings while I drink my coffee.
That sounds really lovely. Another example is, let us grab lunch tomorrow and have a chat about our weekend plans.
I love that. But my neighbor was not listening, so I had to change my strategy. That brings us to our third phrase. I said I had to have a word with him.
This one changes the vibe completely. When you have a word with someone, it implies a brief but very serious conversation. You are usually correcting a problem or telling someone they did something wrong.
It sounds a little bit scary, honestly. You are setting a firm boundary. If you ever hear your boss say, "I need to have a word with you," you will probably feel a little bit nervous.
So true. Here is a good example. The teacher had to have a word with the students because they were talking during the exam.
Great example. Or you could say, "I am going to have a word with the store manager because my food was served completely cold." Please do not be afraid to use these simple phrases. They instantly make your spoken English sound completely natural and effortless, instead of like a strict textbook.
Okay, now that we have got those words down, let us look at the flip side in real talk too. So, my story is basically the exact opposite of yours. While you were dealing with a crazy late-night party, I was completely trapped in corporate meeting mode last Thursday. I was working from home, and my schedule was just totally packed.
Oh no. Please do not tell me you had back-to-back meetings.
Exactly that. I had 3 heavy video calls scheduled right in a row. They were super technical, and I had to present all these complex project updates. I was literally sitting in my desk chair for almost 4 hours straight.
That is way too long to sit.
It really was. By the time the third meeting finally ended, I felt completely wiped out. My brain was just totally fried, and my eyes were literally burning from staring at the bright computer monitor for so long.
Screen fatigue is so real. I always get massive throbbing headaches when I look at my bright laptop screen for that long. It really drains your energy.
It completely drains you. I slowly closed my laptop screen, and I just sat there in the total silence for a solid minute. I felt so incredibly stiff and sore in my shoulders. I knew right then that I really had to get away from my workspace. I was definitely not going to get any more productive work done feeling like that.
You absolutely had to step away and breathe.
Right. I usually try my best to push through the exhaustion and keep working, but this time, I decided I just really needed to have a break. I stood up, stretched my legs, and completely ignored all the unread emails popping up on my cell phone.
Good for you. Setting firm work boundaries is so important.
Exactly. So, I walked out of my dark home office and went straight into the sunny kitchen. I realized I had entirely skipped lunch because I was so nervous and stressed out about the big presentations. My stomach was growling loudly, and I was absolutely starving.
Skipping meals is the absolute worst thing you can do. I always get so incredibly cranky and annoyed when I forget to eat during a busy workday.
Me too. I turn into a totally different, miserable person. I quickly opened the refrigerator, and I knew I needed to have a snack immediately to bring my low blood sugar back up. I grabbed a thick block of sharp cheddar cheese, some salty crackers, and a huge handful of cold green grapes.
That actually sounds amazing. A perfect little recovery plate.
It was exactly the food what I was craving. But instead of taking the plate right back to my messy desk, which is my usual terrible habit, I forced myself to walk out onto my apartment balcony.
Wait, you actually went outside during work hours? I am so incredibly proud of you. That is a huge step forward for a busy workaholic like you.
I know, right? I sat down on my little outdoor patio chair. I felt the cool afternoon breeze right on my tired face. I did not look at a single digital screen. I just sat there in the fresh open air, eating my cheese and crackers, and watched the cars drive by on the busy street below.
That sounds so incredibly relaxing and peaceful.
It really was magic. Taking those 10 quiet minutes just to have a break completely reset my stressed mind. When I finally walked back inside to finish my daily tasks, I felt so much more focused, happy, and energized. It is truly crazy how much a tiny pause can help you survive a bad day.
That is such a different vibe from my stressful night. But wait, I heard you drop some highly interesting phrases just now. time for our second real talk breakdown. Okay, I heard you use the word have in 3 completely different ways too. Let us break those down.
I totally did. It is funny how native speakers just use these little phrases naturally, without even thinking about it.
Exactly. So the first one you said was that you had back-to-back meetings.
Yes, to have back-to-back meetings means you have professional appointments scheduled right next to each other. There is absolutely zero time to rest in between them.
It is such a descriptive phrase. Instead of saying something boring like, "My schedule is very busy," saying you have back-to-back meetings really paints a clear picture of your day.
It absolutely does. And please remember, it is completely okay if these colorful phrases feel a little bit strange to use right now.
Exactly. Trying new vocabulary might feel challenging at first, but that is completely normal. Here's a quick example to help. Tomorrow, I will probably have back-to-back meetings all morning, so I might not be able to grab coffee with you.
Great everyday example. Or you could say, the popular dentist has back-to-back appointments today, so the waiting room is completely full.
Perfect. Now, the next one you used was have a snack. You said you really needed to have a snack to bring your energy levels back up.
Right. We use this all the time instead of saying something robotic like, I need to eat a small portion of food. It sounds so much more casual, friendly, and light.
It really does. It simply means eating a tiny bit of food between your regular big meals. I always love to have a snack right before I go to the gym to work out.
That is smart. Another example is, my young nephews always want to have a snack right before dinner time, which drives my sister crazy.
That is hilarious and so true. Okay, the final phrase you used was have a break. You said you took 10 minutes just to have a break from your bright computer screen.
Yes. To have a break simply means to pause what you are currently doing for a short amount of time to rest. You just step away and decompress for a few quiet minutes.
It is such an important daily habit. Instead of saying, I must stop my work, have a break feels so much softer and more human. For example, let us have a break and get some fresh air outside.
I really like that one. You can also say, the tired students always have a break after their long morning classes finish.
Those are excellent examples to practice. We have covered some great expressions today, but there are a few sneaky traps you need to watch out for. Let us jump into common mistakes and make sure you do not get them wrong.
Welcome to Common Mistakes. Now let us talk about where people usually get this wrong when using these everyday phrases.
Yes, the first trap is a big one. I hear learners say, I'm having a hard time to sleep.
Oh, I hear that exact mistake all the time. But you should never use the word to right there. The fix is to say, I am having a hard time sleeping.
Exactly. Always use the ing form of the verb after having a hard time. Just remember, hard time plus ing.
Spot on. Okay, the second big trap is with the word break. Many learners translate directly from their native language and confidently say, I need to make a break.
I used to do the exact same thing when I was learning Spanish. But the fix in English is to say, I need to have a break.
Right. In English, we do not build or create the rest period, so we do not use make. We simply possess the free time, so we use have.
That makes perfect sense. The third trap is a tiny preposition mistake. People often say, I need to have a word to him.
That is so close, but it is not quite right. The fix is to say, I need to have a word with him.
Exactly. You are sharing the conversation together, so you use with. Saying to sounds like you are just yelling at a blank wall.
True. All right, let us do a rapid review. Do not say, having a hard time to sleep. Say, having a hard time sleeping.
Do not say, make a break. Say, have a break.
And do not say, have a word to him. Say, have a word with him.
And that is how you use them in the wild. But how does that compare to what you learned in school? Let us check out textbook versus real life.
Welcome to Textbook versus Real Life. Textbook English is 100% understandable, so please do not be hard on yourself if you speak this way.
Exactly. We just want to give you the most natural native options to help you sound relaxed. Here is example 1. Textbook. It is difficult to fall asleep.
Real life. I am having a hard time sleeping. We always prefer to talk about our personal experience rather than just stating a cold fact.
Example 2. Textbook. I want to talk to you nicely.
Real life. I want to have a chat with you. The phrase have a chat instantly makes the listener feel completely relaxed and safe.
Example 3. Textbook. I must speak to you in a serious manner.
Real life. I need to have a word with you. This sets a firm boundary without needing to use aggressive or angry vocabulary.
Example 4. Textbook. I have meetings one after another all day.
Real life. I have back-to-back meetings today. This idiom is just much faster to say when you are talking quickly at work.
Example 5. Textbook. I need to stop working for a short minute.
Real life. I need to have a break. We use this natural phrase because it focuses on gaining positive rest, not just stopping a stressful task.
All right, you have heard us talk enough for now. It is time to really build that conversational muscle memory. Let us jump right into the shadowing practice.
Welcome to the shadowing practice. Here is a quick pro tip. Please hit the pause button after you hear each sentence and repeat it out loud at your own pace.
Our first sentence today is about struggling with something. Use this when you want to show a little vulnerability instead of sounding like a robot. Listen and repeat.
I am having a hard time sleeping.
I am having a hard time sleeping.
Moving on to the second one. This is perfect when you want to start a casual, friendly conversation without making people nervous. Here we go. We need to have a chat.
We need to have a chat.
And our final expression is about stepping away from your work. Use this when you are feeling totally drained and need to decompress. Listen and repeat. I really need to have a break.
I really need to have a break. Great job today! Let us wrap things up with some final thoughts.
The main lesson today is that you do not need fancy words to sound natural. Basic words are your best friends.
Remember that learning takes time. Some days will feel slow, but every time you practice, you are moving forward. Stay consistent, stay curious, and trust the process.
Please hit the like button. It only takes 2 seconds and genuinely helps the channel reach more learners just like you. Subscribe for new episodes.
For our question today, what do you usually do when you have a break? Tell us in the comments. Thank you for your time. Click the next video to keep leveling up your English.